Hi everyone, we are on our IDE and we are going to create a Spring Boot application. In this application, we are going to create an API which will be accessible for only particular IPs. And to do that, let's create a Spring Boot application first. And let's create quickly an API in that. So I'll go to others and create a Spring Starter project. You can create through spring.starter.io also. I'm going to create whitelisting IPs demo. So this is demo project for whitelisting. I'll click on go to the next part. Simply what we want, let's create a DevTools dependency to load things at runtime. We don't require to reload all the things after new changes. Let's have a web and web services, and also we want to have security. So Spring Security. I'll click on close projects, and this is our project which we want to create whitelisting of APIs in that. So this is the dependency, Spring Security, web and web services. We have DevTools to load things at runtime. So here inside this, I'm going to create a controller. So it will be class type and simply my controller. So in this my controller, I will annotate it with the REST controller, and then @request mapping. And inside this request mapping, I'll pass simply test, and beside this, inside this, I'll create a get method. So I'll pass get mapping. Inside the get mapping, I'll simply say test IPs. So inside this, I'll pass public and response entity as we generally do in APIs, and we'll pass string in the response entity, and I'll say get data. And in this get data, I'll simply return a string data. So I'll say return the new response entity, and this response entity will return success or successfully executed. So this will execute the process successfully, and it will return HTTP status as OK. So HTTP status dot OK. So in this way, if you see, we have completed our Spring API. In this, it is just a REST controller. When I'll right click run as Spring Boot application, just after allowing, it says it is already in use. So I'll change the port. So I'll say server.port. So I've changed this to 8081, and now again I will run this application. And as you can see, this application has started. And by default, as we know, this is the initial password which is already being shared by Spring Boot application if we have explicitly not provided any password. So if I will go to the browser and I will write this same application localhost and 8081, which was the IP, and rest part is nothing but test and IPs. If you see, this is test, then IPs. So I'll pass test and IPs. So it will ask me to log in first. Why? Because this is Spring dependency with Spring Security. It will not allow any other IPs without the password which is provided by Spring Security. And where we will find the password? Here in the console itself. So just copy this, and by default our user and password. So by default it is user and password which is executed successfully now. Now the things comes that what if my IP is not whitelisted for this particular application? So how to handle those part? So for that we need to create a configuration file. So let's do one thing. Let's move this controller to controller package, and simply I'll provide move controller to new package. And as you can see, once I have just saved, it has already redeployed. Why? Because we have provided a dependency of DevTools in the POM file. As you can see, we have a dependency of DevTools, so we don't need to explicitly rerun or restart the application. Whenever we do change, this will load itself. And now let's provide a configuration file. So I'll create a new config where we will do the whitelisting of our APIs. So I'll write config, and this will be a configuration file, and I'll click finish. Let's provide this in config folder. So config and save it, and here move this to config folder. So this has been moved here in the config folder. Now since this is a configuration file, I'll require add that configuration. And one more thing, since we are doing Spring Security related stuff and changes, so we should enable Spring Security. So enable web security, so this will, whatever we will write here, it will enable the web security. And what we need to write, we need to provide the beans. So @bean we'll provide, and then we'll provide public security filter chain, and I'll write filter chain. Inside this filter chain, we need to provide HTTP security. So whatever HTTP will come, it will do the changes according to the code which you write inside this. So we'll pass HTTP security. So let's provide HTTP as a HTTP security, and just let me stop this as of now because we are writing code, and clear the console as of now, minimize it. And now what we'll do, we'll write the code related to our authorization and also the whitelisting of IP. So simply we will write HTTP dot authorize request security, then dot add matches. Then inside this add matches will provide the login path. That login should be allowed for all the IPs. So login should be allowed for everything. So simply I'll say dot permit all. Also we will write condition dot add matches. Which one? The path which we have provided. Which path we have provided? -tests. So the path which we have provided with -tests, just do the whitelisting on that. So this is where we used to write the IP whitelisting part. So I will say dot has IP address, and initially let's provide IP address 1.2.3.4 just for testing purpose. And after that we'll simply say dot and any requests dot and requests dot and dot authenticated, or simply just provide it in the same line dot authenticated. This is not HTTP only, but only authenticated, then dot and simply I'll say do the form login dot form login and permit all, and dot CSRF dot disabled. That's it. So what we have done, we have said, and let's throw the exception also, add throws. So now what we have done is that we have provided that any request which is coming, login is allowed for all the requests, and tests path, whatever the test path is there, we should provide it -* also. So any path which is coming with the test should has an IP of this only, otherwise it will not allow. My IP is not this one, so this will not allow initially my request which will land on this particular test path. We will see in the coming part. And any request which is coming should allow for form login, and also this CSRF is disabled. Return statement, so we'll return dot HTTP, this HTTP which we have created dot build. So simply it will return the HTTP. Now our Spring Security filter chain is complete, and we have whitelisted IP 1, 2, 3 and 4. This is not my IP, so automatically this test will not be allowed for my request. So simply I will restart the application. So let's start this application, and now this time it will again give me an password. This is my password which I've just copied. And now let's go to the browser, and let's start with this only. So I will just hit the login. I will ask for username and password. So my username, as I said, by default comes out to be user, and password is the same password which we have copied from the console part. So I'll paste it here. When I'll do the sign in, it will say white label error page, so that you are seeing this fallback. Why? Because this is forbidden. So this IP is forbidden for my IP. Copied my IP address. Simply you need to go, if you are using Windows, go to start setting, never Wi-Fi, or if you are using, or directly if you are using some other internet, then just cross check, and under this section you'll find your IP. So I've copied my IP, and now this time I will go and simply I'll paste it here, my IP address. So I pasted my IP address and I'll click on save, and my application will load. And again I will do localhost 8081-test-IPs. So it will say this is executed successfully. Why? Because my IP got whitelisted this time. So this was about Spring Security, how we can configure our whitelisting of IPs through Spring Security. You should be aware of what your IP should be correct. If the IP is not correct, it should not. It should match with your call which you are calling from. Otherwise, it will again give you forbidden. Thank you all for watching the video.